stories from afar, every Monday night at 8:30.
International affairs that concern all of us. Comprehensive research and thorough reports on the most pressing issues. Let's focus on the events that truly matter. Check in current news in focus, tonight at 8.
To prevent avian flu, you should avoid touching birds, poultry or their droppings. And wash hands frequently. Make sure that all foods from poultry, including eggs, are thoroughly cooked before eating. When traveling outside Hong Kong, avoid visiting poultry markets and farms. Do not bring any birds or poultry back to Hong Kong. If you develop fever and respiratory symptoms after your trip, wear a mask and consult your doctor explaining your travel history.
We heard you have some great products to sell. How about making ATV's 2013 Add Easy package your one-stop solution? Our promotion reaches as far as the Pearl River Delta region and southern China. And our prices start at just $68,000. Call 3168-2232 or our mainland hotline now.
Welcome back. North Korea today issued new threats against rival South Korea, vowing sledgehammer blows of retaliation if Seoul doesn't apologize for anti-Pyongyang protests.
The protests were held yesterday as North Korea celebrated the birth of its founding father. A day after North Korean state television broadcast these pictures of leader Kim Jong-un visiting the mausoleum of his grandfather and the country's founder Kim Il-sung on what would have been his 101st birthday, state media issued new threats against its neighbors. Pyongyang promised revenge against rival South Korea if it doesn't apologize for holding anti-North Korea protests on the anniversary of the elder Kim's birth. The reclusive state's army said, "Our retaliatory action will start without any notice from now on. The military demonstration of the DPRK's Revolutionary Armed Forces will be powerful sledgehammer blows at all hostile forces, hurting the dignity of the supreme leadership." Seoul reacted today as it has over the past few weeks. "It is regrettable that the North is threatening us," said South Korean Defense Ministry spokesman Kim In-suk. Pyongyang's other regional rival, Japan, also weighed in while keeping its PAC-3 missiles stationed outside its defense ministry building in case North Korea launches an attack. Unfortunately, they are continuing their provocative actions, but in order to push for denuclearization or in order to stop missile launches, it is necessary to have China use its influence, said Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe. But what's strange is that Pyongyang didn't threaten its biggest enemy, the U.S., today. Anti-Washington rhetoric has been North Korea's focus over the past few weeks, and Pyongyang has made it its mission to prove it has missiles powerful enough to hit American outposts in South Korea and the Pacific. U.S. President Barack Obama will meet his South Korean counterpart, Park Geun-hye, in Washington on the 7th of May to discuss how to counter North Korea's threats. Washington has offered to hold direct talks with Pyongyang, but on the precondition that it abandons its nuclear ambitions, something North Korea has so far refused to do. China has criticized the U.S. for increasing tensions in the region by boosting its military presence and shoring up alliances.
Beijing also said that while its own military build-up is for defense purposes, it would not allow other countries to undermine its sovereignty. Bo Leung has more.
In its annual white paper, the Defense Ministry noted that some countries are increasing their military presence in the region. Beijing was specifically referring to the US, which has switched its military focus to the Asia-Pacific area. Purposely enhancing military deployment and strengthening military alliances are not conducive to regional peace and stability, said Defense Ministry spokesman Yang Yu-jun. Beijing said Japan and the Philippines have become more assertive in claiming disputed territories because they know they have the US behind them. Vietnam, too, has become more vocal in pressing its claims to islands surrounded by resource-rich waters. Disputes over territory in the East and South China Seas were highlighted by the row between Beijing and Tokyo, which both claim the Diaoyu Islands. Trade and political relations between the two neighbours have taken a big hit as friction over the Diaoyus continues to simmer. Safeguarding our maritime interests is an important obligation of the Chinese military, Yang said. It is also a practical need to cope with national security threats. Yang played down concerns over China's military build-up as the world's second biggest economy flexes its defense muscles. The White Paper repeated Beijing's stance that it will never seek hegemony. It said the Chinese armed forces have domestic duties, including safeguarding the border and coastal areas. But at the same time, troops will strengthen their combat readiness and will continue to take part in drills. While stressing its peaceful intentions, China also warned it's ready to respond to moves that undermine its sovereignty, security and territorial integrity. In what is described as a first, the White Paper also gave details of China's military structure in an apparent bid by the Defense Ministry to become more transparent. The strength of the army was given as 850,000, with the Navy having 235,000 personnel and the Air Force nearly 400,000. Boleng, ATV News.
Radical pan-Democrat legislators have submitted more than 700 amendments ahead of the budget bill debate tomorrow as part of their campaign for a universal pension scheme.
Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying urged them not to filibuster, saying it would hinder government operations. Emily Siu reports.
It's not the first time that radical pan-Democrats are resorting to a filibuster. Last year, they introduced hundreds of amendments in a bid to force the government to scrap a means test before the elderly could get a new living allowance. Pan-Democrats also staged a marathon debate against the controversial by-election law. This time, the radicals are aiming to block the passage of the budget bill because they want to press their demand for a universal pension scheme. Leung Kwok-hung of the League of Social Democrats and the Three People Power legislators have submitted more than 700 amendments to the LegCo Secretariat. Debating all the amendments would take hundreds of hours. LegCo President Sang Yuk-sing says although it is not in his power to terminate any debates or filibuster at will, he will try to avoid endless debates.
I can't tell you this at this moment because I haven't looked at the amendments one by one yet. I have to decide first of all which amendments should be admitted, which amendments are in order and which are out of order, right? And then after I've decided how many amendments we have to deal with, then I will discuss with the Secretariat and decide on the procedure of dealing with the amendments.
Zhang also stressed the current situation is different from the marathon debate last year over the by-election bill.
On the last occasion, I decided to end the debate only after it had lasted for over 30 hours.
Meanwhile, Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying urged the lawmakers who introduced amendments to the budget bill to stay rational. He called on them to look at the bigger picture and work for the public good. The chief executive said a filibuster would delay the administration's efforts to help the needy, many of whom depend on government subsidies to survive. Emily Siu, ATV News.
It's always unfortunate and a little funny when you see pictures of people trapped in unexpected places, like in between walls.
Well, that's exactly what happened to a young girl on the mainland, and a man also in China got stuck under a giant bell. While this is unfortunate, the last place you'd expect to find the head of a 6-year-old girl, but she managed to do it anyway. She was playing with her friends in Guangxi when her little head got jammed in between two walls. In all fairness, the girl couldn't move for 3 hours while rescuers got her head out. And even then, it was probably the weirdest job they'd ever done. They tried almost everything, but in the end, something had to give. So it was the walls. Part of them had to be drilled away before she got free, and it's probably safe to say that she's staying away from those narrow alleyways for a long time. It's all relative, though, because this guy seemed to have it worse. He was trapped under a 2-ton bronze bell at a museum in Shandong. And just how he managed to get stuck is kind of crazy. He was standing directly beneath the bell when suddenly the rope holding it up snapped. Apparently, other museum goers were to blame. They kept spinning the rope. Rescuers managed to get the man out quite quickly, though. It took them just 5 minutes, with a pulley and some rope, no, not that rope, to lift the bell off him. In sports, the Cleveland Cavaliers have found the Miami Heat too hot to handle, while Africans dominated the Boston Marathon yet again. The world's oldest marathon kicked off with 28,000 runners pounding the streets of Boston in the 117th edition of the race. Before tragedy marred the event, Africans again showed their prowess on the 42-kilometer course. Rita Jeptu of Kenya was the first woman to cross the finishing line. She did it in 2 hours, 26 minutes and 25 seconds. Ethiopia's Lelisa Desisa took the men's crown in a time of 2 hours, 10 minutes and 22 seconds. In the NBA, a moment of silence was held for the Boston Blast victims before the Miami Heat took on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Despite resting their star players, Miami were on fire and led 96-95 just before the final buzzer. Cleveland had a chance to steal the game, but Norris Cole stopped Kyrie Irving from making a game-winning jump. It was Miami's 7th straight victory. Thousands of people in the English city of Liverpool have attended the annual memorial service for 96 football fans killed in the Hillsborough tragedy in 1989. Anfield Stadium was packed as Liverpool supporters and players took part in the ceremony, in which the names of the victims were read out one by one. The fans were killed in a crush at Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield during an FA Cup match.
And a look at the weather before we go. It was mainly cloudy today. Temperatures ranged from 21 to 25 degrees, while the relative humidity was between 83 and 93%. Winds were light. Looking at the ultraviolet reading, the maximum recorded for the day was 3, and tomorrow's UV index will be around 6. Let's take a look at the weather around the region. An active southerly airstream will bring showers to southern China in the next couple of days. And moving on to the satellite images, a cloud band is covering the coastal areas of Guangdong. Here's what we could expect over the next few days. It will be mainly cloudy with a few showers tomorrow. Temperatures will range from 23 to 26 degrees. Mainly cloudy with sunny intervals and a few showers on Thursday with a top temperature of 27 degrees. And cloudy and rainy weather will stay around for the rest of the week. Now for tomorrow's air pollution levels. General stations will be medium to high at 45 to 85, and roadside pollution levels will be high to very high at 95 to 160. And finally, here's the weather around the world.
That's the main news for Tuesday night. I'll have an update in an hour. I'm HEYLING Chan.
And I'm Belinda Lloyd. Thanks for watching ATV. Good night.
Good night.
Coming up, In Focus.